NFL Week 8 is coming up, and boy, oh boy, is there going to be a lot to talk about here. Of course, today we're going to do a handful of things. We're going to hand build a lineup. We're going to optimize some lineups, going to simulate some lineups. Underdog Battle Royale draft, Underdog Pick'em. This is the fantasy football gauntlet that we hit on every Friday. And apparently, in my haste, as I could see in the chat, apparently I put the wrong time, the wrong start time in here. So I mentioned yesterday, I did have an 11 o'clock meeting. Excuse me, unfortunately, it went a little bit long, so that is why I am here. I'm burping like Rick from Rick and Morty here on the stream. But we are going to get it going here now. And because of the fact that I haven't had the chance to dig in as deeply as I normally would on the overall data process, what we're going to do first, we're actually going to look at the projections, we're going to simulate, then we're going to hand build. And I think this is going to be something that actually completely changes the hand build portion, what we normally do on these streams. But it is something that I am going to try today because, frankly, I am scrambled. I had a very important meeting right before this one, so I am... it's hard to go from like serious Spags mode to woo, silly Spags mode that we do here. But I'm going to do the best I can because that's all I can ever do, guys. You even get my bun today. Look, it's a bun day, guys, because I don't wear hats on calls. I'm a professional business person, a man of note in the sports betting community. So I have to do that. But let's simulate these lineups here. Again, the projections. You can see some of the top projected guys. Let's look at that first. Tyreek Hill, top projected play in the slate. He's projected to be very chalky as well in the stochastic data that we'll look at in a moment. Patrick Mahomes at number 2, Lamar at number 3, Jalen Hurts, the guy in the thumbnail, at number 4, facing a Washington team that, quite frankly, gives it up a lot better than the public realizes. We'll look at that in a moment. Stephon Diggs on the Thursday slate. We just saw him. Christian McCaffrey, though, comes in at number 5 on the main slate. These are top projected guys. Top value plays in the slate. So these are some of the guys we could expect. Let's pop into an optimizer a little bit more. Sam Darnold, of course, Brock Purdy in the concussion protocol. That'll be an important one. Let me make sure to just take out the Thursdays because this is not helpful for anybody. Dalton Kincaid at number 2. We don't need him anymore. Dak Prescott, number 2 value on the slate. Trey McBride, Zach Ertz on IR. He's another top value on the slate. Kenny Pickett, Falcons D. These are all the players that you would expect to get a little bit more of an optimizer. I think especially the Falcons D. We'll find out in a moment. Top owned plays. Let's hit on them. And again, we will still do the hand build. I gotta get in the mindset a little more. It's an art here. After I fucking hit on Khalil Shakir yesterday, you guys know I'm an artist. I gotta paint my picture that comes with a little more data. So ownership projections, Tyreek, Joe Mixon against the Niners. I don't know who would play that, but apparently people will at a $5,800 salary. Isaiah Pacheco, $6,100. He'll be going 3rd overall, 18% projected ownership. Jamar Chase at number 4, a lower version of 18% projected ownership. And Alvin Kamara, 17% ownership. The guy who graded out as the top running back in the Spags rankings. He is coming in there at the 5 hole. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's try to optimize first. Let's plug them in here. We'll do our usual 25 lineups. No stacks, nothing weird here going on. We're just going to see what the pure math brings us with this build. And this is a good way to tell normally, again, how people will be forced to build based on the data. It's not a thing where the Fantasy Cruncher optimizer is reflecting what the field's actually going to fully do. But what it is going to tell you is where people get pushed towards a little bit more because the projections look in a certain way, because the value metrics looking a certain way. That is what we find from the Fantasy Cruncher optimizer here. And Kendrick Bourne coming up a lot. So I would imagine right away from seeing this, you're going to see a good amount of Tyreek paired with Kendrick Bourne as the bring back for slates this weekend. So again, Tyreek chalkiest play on the slate. People always hunt for a bring back. You go Tyreek, Kendrick Bourne, very easy to get to, $4,700 salary. Kendrick Bourne's recent games also very good in the box score. He's not very good in terms of the EPA metrics, not the most efficient guy in the world, but the pure volume there, would be how that goes. Beer would help with bringing out that silly Spags. If I'm cracking open a beer at 11:20 in the morning, and it's not summer especially, that I'm going through it. So I can't do that. I did have a few beers last night. I actually should have shared, would have opened with this if I had the time to fully prep. Last night, again, another tilting one. If you're in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, of course, on the Splash Play channel, last night was a night where I was carrying first place in the play action up until the last 5 minutes of the game, or last 3 minutes of the game. You know what happened? A face mask. I guess really the face mask being the culmination of it. 3 straight allowed first downs by that Bills D when just getting the Bucks off the field would have ended that game. I would have been $5K richer. Instead, we are here today, hat in hand, not even wearing a hat. That's how poor we are after what happened yesterday. But my showdown run bad, man. Like, I'm getting these takes right. I'm the only stream, I think, yesterday that I saw mentioned Khalil Shakir as a very important play. Mentioned a lot of stuff that ended up hitting last night. And yet here I am not wearing a hat, doing a stream today. We move forward. GM to the Squirt Squad. Yes, appreciate the chat. Appreciate all the community here. All you guys hanging out here with me, especially when I'm at my most frazzled. That is when we do our best. Other things to note in this crunch. You're getting 3-player stacks for the Niners and 3 out of 25 lineups. Nothing too noteworthy there. Getting a good amount of Dallas stacks. Dallas against the Rams. Going to be a popular play this week. It does seem like Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard going to be projected fairly well as well. So a lot of guys here that are not really nothing that crazy stack-wise, but a lot of guys you'll see represented pretty well. Tyreek, Cowboys, I guess Niners as well. And you really have to ask the question about Sam Darnold. He is a professional QB at 4,300. You never see like a real pro caliber QB who actually was fairly good last year for Carolina. You never see a guy like him be this cheap. So I do think it makes some amount of sense to go to him. That said, if he's coming up 52% naturally, he and Dak, the only QBs coming up in an unencumbered crunch. It does feel like these guys are going to be a little bit higher owned, a little bit more steam on them you'd probably like to see. No hat, no AR jersey. I don't even know who you are anymore. Yeah, it's true. I feel like people really get thrown off when I don't wear a hat. So that's why I usually wear a hat. But for calls, they don't know. They don't know YouTube Spags. They just know the guy they're getting a meeting with. So I have to not wear a hat and try to look like a serious adult. But there we go. So key takeaways, I guess, overall from this, does seem like a lot of 2 tight end builds, Ferguson and McBride, Ferguson and Hockenson again. So it does seem like the flex being a tight end this week, probably going to be a little higher owned than it normally would because of the projections pushing people there. Trey McBride just coming in everywhere. He is in 52% of these lineups, but he is prominently featured in all the top projected ones. And the optimal lineup, if you wanted to use a cash lineup from Fantasy Cruncher, it would be this one. Sam Darnold, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, nice matchup against the Giants, Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, Kendrick Bourne, Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Falcons. Nothing crazy in terms of a cash build, but we'll see how that compares to the sim cash lineup that we get in a moment. All right, so with that in mind, this is not how I want to build at all. So I guess that's going to throw me for a loop. But for a single entry, I think you're rewarded even more by going to a different QB stack. But that Darnold stuff is hard to ignore. Just being 4,300. I don't know. What is the matchup? Let me look at the Niners matchup a little bit more. I think this will help me get there. I've also, by the way, been preparing NBA data this morning, so I am fucking all over the place. Got to do the deeper dive later today with my pal Josh Engelman on Stochastic. So if you're looking for more cross-sport Spags with properly formatted YouTube times, you can go check that out later today on Stochastic. 4:45 is when that starts. So San Francisco going against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's defense pretty good at everything. Negative 0.09 EPA per drop back. Negative 0.11 EPA per pass. 0.01 EPA per rush, though. So I guess McCaffrey, not that you would ever have any issue going to him in any sort of build. McCaffrey, probably a more appealing play as a result. And maybe he's not a way to get leverage because he was coming up pretty often in those top projected lineups as well. No, fuck it. I gotta stick with the thumbnail guy. I think this is a good Jalen Hurts spot. I really believe the value of Sam Darnold is hard to ignore. That said, it's hard to ignore. So a lot of people are going to be there. But the spot against the Commanders. So the Commanders have 2 things going for them overall. Number one is they pass above expectation and one of the highest marks in the league. So that's something there where they're also not a great passing team. So them passing above expectation means they're just stopping the clock a lot more. So that's certainly something that's going to matter. They're also bad against the run, a 0 flat EPA against the run, 0.61 EPA allowed per rush. That is a very good number allowed by them. 0.03 EPA per dropback, 0.04 EPA per pass. My big ding on Jalen Hurts this year has been that he's just not as efficient as he was last year. But when he's going against the matchup here where the baseline for what they're doing efficiency-wise and what's being allowed by the Commanders is higher than average, that means that Jalen Hurts should be higher than average. And we've seen him have outlier days recently with him being, just playing a little bit worse than he did last year. So in this spot, I think it's a pretty strong one. Obviously, the team total not being a home game, things you can nickel and dime. 25.3 implied points for Philadelphia on the road at Washington. But in this spot, I think that Jalen Hurts is a strong play. And I'm also not going to fade A.J. Brown at this point. His price tag has not come up. He continues to break slates. We know that he has the same ceiling, same floor as a Tyreek Hill. Maybe not the same floor. That might be unfair. But definitely the same ceiling. 15 targets last game, 137 yards. At a certain point, it is going to end. It is going to be Devontae Smith having an outlier day. For right now, though, in this matchup, I just don't think A.J. Brown's coming down here. So I'm going to go Hurts and Brown. We'll get contrarian right from the jump already. I was already listening to the process this morning. My favorite free content that's ever existed other than Splash Play. I appreciate that, Consigliere, but Josh does a great job in the process. I enjoy his process and the thumbnails, too, of Josh looking up at the data. One of my favorite thumbnails out there in the biz. So shout out to our pal Josh. Again, I'll be with later today on Stochastic. Running back plays. Now, who would I believe in the most in this spot? Tony Pollard due for a bounce back day. Not a bad matchup against the Rams. I think it's Kamara for me, honestly. Like Kamara, again, 27 intended touches a game is so much. Him being atop the Spags rankings was not an efficiency thing. It was just because he's getting such a crush of work, including the red zone work. So to me, Alvin Kamara, a very strong play. And now we are really getting gobbled up salary-wise, so that might be tough for us. But let's go with Trey McBride. We'll take, I don't think it's a free square, 2,800 against Baltimore. How's the tight end matchup against Baltimore? Baltimore giving up 0.08 EPA per target to tight ends, which is a better matchup than out wide. Baltimore negative 0.3 EPA allowed to wideouts going out wide. 0.05 EPA to the slot. Trey McBride certainly, hopefully, would consolidate the Zach Ertz touches along with his own. He's been getting 3 targets per game on the year. Zach Ertz getting 6. If we say that we'll split the difference on that one, maybe we get to 7 targets for Trey McBride. I think that'd be pretty good. So for him at the salary point, pretty chalky, but we got unique enough with our QB stack for a single entry. So I think we'll be okay playing Trey McBride in this particular build. Cooper Kupp against Dallas, not going to be able to afford him. We got to go down. Let's get our DST in so I have a good read on how much we could spend everywhere else. Of course, for DST, I'm always down to go to the bottom here. Patriots, Broncos, Cardinals, Bengals. Can the Bengals get a pick on Sam Darnold and blow up those Niners stacks? I think they can. Let's go Bengals. Bengals at 2,200. So that's going to free up a lot of money there. That'll be good. Aren't DVP metrics for tight end kind of noisy? EPA is not a DVP metric. It's about performance over average for the position. So they are noisy if you're facing like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, whatever, in terms of like the pure DVP. But DVP in general is like, if you're looking at like these metrics, that's always going to be very noisy. For EPA metrics, it just reflects the defense's ability to give stuff up. So yes and no. Like slot and tight end also go hand in hand as well. So if you see a slot weakness and a tight end weakness, or, you know, a tight end less of a weakness, like you could kind of roll them together. But no, I don't think it's that noisy for tight ends. Josh Downs added to this build. I think that's a logical one to go to. Downs, we've seen gotten the workload initially. A lot of his biggest days came with AR at QB. Downs at 4,800 feels to me like Nico Collins earlier in the year where the price was just a little bit wrong. Downs, let me look at Downs in this spot. Downs largely getting most of his production out of the slot, as you'd expect. Negative matchup coming out of the slot against New Orleans, but Downs so involved, I guess, that I wouldn't hate it. Pittman's kind of a live leverage play. We do have about a third of the ownership going to Michael Pittman than we do to Josh Downs, but obviously the salary does make that a little bit moot. And Alec Pierce is not a leverage play at all. I'm just going to follow Tyler here. I trust Tyler enough. As I'm ham-fistedly building a hand-built lineup, I think we're going to go with Josh Downs here. Running back, let's pick another running back here. Got 55-6. Chuba Hubbard going to be involved more this week going against Houston. I think Dameon Pierce is probably the better play out of the two of them, though he does have Devin Singletary obviously coming for his opportunities overall. But Chuba is so much cheaper. He's not that much cheaper, actually. Let's go Dameon Pierce. So the reason why I would say we go to Dameon Pierce, number one, would be that I do believe this Houston offense can really get some production going against Carolina. Carolina, you know, a slightly negative defense on the year, negative 0.05 EPA per dropback, negative 0.05 EPA per pass, but a 0.04 EPA per rush. So as long as they do get in a game script that's going to benefit Dameon Pierce, I do believe they can with CJ Stroud at QB. I think Dameon Pierce is a very strong play to go to relative to projection. Going to be 2.4% owned according to Stochastic, 2.5% owned according to ETR. An under 5% owned running back in a good spot is a guy I'm willing to take a flyer on. And you guys know that I have nickel and dime Dameon Pierce about as much as anybody. But Pierce, I think, nice situation for him here against Carolina. As long as Houston can build a lead, I think he's going to be in a good spot. And then we do have Seattle. Yeah, Seattle's on the main slate. So Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker not practicing the last 2 days. He is certainly a player that we know has been getting a lot of workload. You could see it right here, even a dud game last week where he busted for half the field. 26 attempts, 2 receptions on 3 targets. He's so involved. The red zone work we've talked about time and time again, over 5 red zone touches a game. Huge for Kenneth Walker. You know who benefits if Kenneth Walker is out? A guy that the best ball bags know very well, Zach Charbonnet. Can he get there against Cleveland? I don't know. We did see some nice runs last week from the Colts against Cleveland, so maybe he can. But I do think as a value play, Charbonnet makes some amount of sense, gives us a 7K number to work with for our last receiver. So that's what we're going to do. And last receiver here. Metcalf too. I don't want to do the thing that worked out last week where obviously Minshew, Downs, the backfield for the Colts went off against the Cleveland D that's been really good on the year. One of the best in the league on the year. That said, a home game here, DK Metcalf, maybe no Tyler Lockett as well. Pierre Strong on the other side. I don't know that I have confidence in Pierre Strong. And also I wouldn't play two running backs from the same game. I'm going to go to Metcalf here. I think you make the case to go to Ayuk coming off of the dud game. Still no Debo expected for this one coming up as well against Cincinnati. Ayuk, again, really busted hard, which is still a silly sentence to say, even though it is in a DFS context. But he busted pretty hard in all of our faces. The last time that he played as a showdown, seemingly lock play, didn't quite get there after a great first half. But Ayuk, I do think a worthwhile DFS play this week, but not going to make my lineup. I'm going DK Metcalf. I think if we do have lock it out, like Metcalf is going to benefit from the same things that JSN benefited from last week. So that's what we're going to go with. Final hand-built team: Jalen Hurts, Alvin Kamara, Damian Pierce, AJ Brown, Josh Downs, DK Metcalf, McBride here, Zach Charbonnet, and the Bengals. That is going to be our team. I don't know why I clammed up on saying Trey. McBride, this piece of shit tight end. This is our huddle entry. Let's do it. We had a good huddle yesterday. So again, the huddles cash more often than not. It's really all I can ask out of this process here for hand building a team on stream. Usually barebacking it, not doing too much advanced knowledge or projections. So make sure it's a pristine process here on stream. But it's time for the sims, guys. Let's do it. And while this simulates, let's play a little game. The game is called, please subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment as well. Of course, Splash Play marches on Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. every day-ish. Sometimes 11:20 p.m. is when the timestamp says, because my brain doing too many things at once. But we are here always for you. I am here always for you. And of course, go check out Probably as well. That is my baby down below, probly.com, Probly.com. The more you check it out, the better right now would be the first thing I would say. But also, we've made some really big improvements on the back end. You can now see if you click the probability anywhere on the site. You can also see when the bet was last updated. So a lot of times you're going to see bets that are updated within the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's what we're trying to do now. We do running updates every 10 minutes on there. But great data, great way to get in good bets. If you're just going to a game, I would go to Probably and just look up the game on our Explore page and just find a few bets that look plus EV. Give yourself something to sweat. We'll use the top probabilities from sportsbooks around the world, from the top performing sportsbooks around the world on there. So go check that out. People wanted a game, by the way, during the sim process. That does take a moment, of course, not too long relative to building 10,000 lineups. And the game apparently is me shilling like a whore. So that's the game you guys get. No trivia. Just me being a hoe. Walker status has not practiced as of yesterday. We will see. I would tend to think, again, the running backs getting a lot of touches, getting injuries. These are the reasons that we have concerns for guys getting a lot of volume early on. But yes, he's got a calf injury. We'll see how it goes. And just yelling Sharbs. That's what I'm going to be yelling when he somehow doesn't come through this week if Walker is out. It is a tough matchup. So I do think if Charbonnet doesn't get going against Cleveland, he'll have some cover. Maybe that's why Walker's not practicing, because he knows that Cleveland's coming up. He knows he's going to hit the skids a little bit with his performances. Maybe he's too clammed up over busting as a 50% owned play last week. That could be something as well. It's keeping Kenneth Walker from going. We all play that game, which do indeed. Really sucks when players bust hard in your face. Look, it does, doesn't it? Does it not? I think we can all agree. If you haven't watched the sim process before, if you haven't used stochastic sims, what it does right now is have those 10,000 lineups we just build compete against each other 40,000 times to find out which have the highest ROI. So we will see how that goes right now. And let's see. Any other interesting plays to note? If I click away, it's going to stop simulating. Other spots that I should highlight here: Carolina run defense, bad. That's one that's really worth highlighting, because I do think for Damian Pierce, there's a lot of things that go well for him. 16% missed tackle rate for the Carolina run defense, 0.3 red zone rush rate, or EPA rather allowed, 0.04 EPA per rush allowed. That is why. That is the only thing. If you're going to talk me into playing Damian Pierce, is going to be in a spot like this. And boy, should you play Adam Thielen as the run back? Adam Thielen up to 6,600. Still going to be pretty chalky. So Thielen's projected right now, 12% ownership by Stochastic, 11% by ETR. I bet he gets a 20 again. If I had to make a bet, I think the season-long players, the casuals especially, will go to Adam Thielen. And I don't know that they're wrong about it, but I do think, as we've talked about earlier in the week, I think Thielen comes with some risk with the new OC there, a bye week to maybe get Jonathan Mingo going, get somebody involved. I don't think it'll be Terrace Marshall, since they did say that he can get traded or he can go seek a trade for himself. Poor Terrace Marshall, I think, going potentially to end up the way of Denzel Mims, which would make me very sad because I think he's got a lot of talent. But Thielen is just going to be out there getting those same opportunities to some extent. So we'll see how far it comes through. But I would watch that Thielen number. Like if you're playing Thielen and going, he's only going to be 10% owned, it's not going to be that bad. I think he's going to be double. What do you my guess? Maybe if a player's facing a hard D, they're likely to bust in your face. Thank you, Carl. I'm glad to see that Carlos is getting to really stretch his pun-based chat writing here. And that's all I've ever asked from Carlos in the chat. So I appreciate it. But yes, the hard D. Maybe he doesn't want to get destroyed by Garrett. I mean, look, if you have an injured calf, I can tell you that's one of the guys I probably don't want to see going against me. But, it's up to Kenneth Walker, right? We'll see how he goes. This is not the spot, by the way, where I think you'd expect Kenneth Walker to have a ceiling game, but Charbonnet at 4,300, much different equation. But Sims here loading up as we speak. Top ROI lineup would be this one, a QB +3. As we talk about sometimes for the really big tournaments, QBs +3 can be pretty tough because you really need to hit the nuts in a milli maker and a play action and a first down and a mini max. All of those, you need to really get get everything right. And if you have a QB +3, like you're likely dragging along one guy who's like kind of iffy. So that's okay for like a spy, one of the big single entry tournaments. So I think that's going to note that right away for any of the QB +3s. But this one, Trevor Lawrence, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, yikes, Kendrick Bourne, TJ Hawkinson, Evan Ingram, Seahawks. So 2 tight ends in this one as well. Again, 2 tight ends I think will be a very popular build. So if you wanted to get different right away this week, I think one way you would do that would be to not have a tight end in your flex. But that's neither here nor there. People love Jacksonville. I get it. A good slot matchup for Christian Kirk this week. I think that all is fine as well. But for me, Trevor Lawrence, not the build I'd be trying to get to. Jalen Hurts. How about this one? Jalen Hurts +1. Hurts, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Kendrick Bourne, Connor Hayward, and Trey McBride. Connor Hayward getting more targets than Darrell Washington for sure for Pittsburgh. But I guess that'll be really low owned. So maybe not a bad build to play. Top cashing lineup. So this would be the alternative. Of course, we talked about the highest projected lineup on Fantasy Cruncher. That's a good cash game lineup. This one would be the highest cashing one in a tournament. I would say this is probably a better cash game lineup. Sam Darnold, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, Hawkinson, Jake Ferguson, and Falcons. 2 tight ends again, huh? I don't know if I believe in Hawkinson for cash. How's the matchup for him? Hawkinson, he's going to be 16% owned, so I guess for cash, he would be an okay play. Going against a Green Bay defense on the year, -0.02 EPA, which is not great, but probably doesn't matter that much for Hawkinson. Yeah, I guess I get it with Hawkinson. I personally wouldn't want to pay 6,200 at tight end unless that's going to be your only tight end. So if you're playing a guy in the flex, you're kind of making a bet against yourself in that sort of configuration. But I guess I could see the logic in that being a cash game one. I'd probably be more inclined for this one for a cash game personally. Darnold, McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Tyreek, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Falcons. And if you wanted to go with an unstacked cash game build, I think this one would be pretty good. Darnold, Kamara, Breece Hall, Tyreek, Zay Flowers, Kendrick Bourne, Hawkinson, Ferguson, Falcons. For cash, I think that's pretty fine. Any chance Hyatt finally cashed in one of the many deep ball targets this week? Let's look at the Giants really fast. What does their matchup look like? I mean, against the Jets, the one thing they've done this pass defense rather, is not as good as last year. They're still defending the deep balls really well. Only a 5% deep ball rate, -0.5 EPA per target, which looks like one of the best marks in the league. So I wouldn't expect this to be the spot where he could go off. I think a little bit more of a Waller kind of maybe Wandale spot because they're pretty bad about defending targets less than 20 air yards, 0.13 EPA there. So that's a pretty stark contrast. Or if you're going downfield, you're getting a -0.5 EPA. If you're going closer to the line of scrimmage or at least under 20 air yards, getting a 0.13 EPA. So I'd be more inclined to target the short ball guys. I can get there in any one play, so I'm not going to begrudge it. But this would be a really contrarian matchup for him to get there, I think. All right, anything else? Any QBs you guys want to see here? Who'd be an interesting one, I guess, that we can identify? Russ at number 2. Yike. Bryce Young at a top projected lineup, huh? Bryce Young, Kamara, Miles Sanders, Tyreek, Thielen, Kendrick Bourne, Hawkinson, Trey McBride, Falcons. Hawkinson just getting into everything, huh? And here would be a good Darnold lineup, I guess, for tournaments. Darnold, McCaffrey, Breece, Ayuk, McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Hawkinson, Ferguson and Seahawks. I would like to find ones without Hawkinson personally, would be my hope, but that's a good lineup to build. Again, this will all move around over the course of the weekend, so if you want to play these lineups straight away, you can. I would advocate to get a subscription yourself, but, obviously do what you guys want here. If you want to just pause the screen, see some lineups here. I'm a man of the people. I always got to give you guys what you want. All right, so let's do it. Underdog Battle Royale. Let's hit this one next. Battle Royale hopefully will be a little more simple to just hop into and do some drafts. And boy, really pushing basketball hard. All right. If you want to play along with me, let's do it on Underdog. Use that promo code SPLASH, of course, to double your deposit up to $500 if you're a new sign up on there. That deal is still going, but check out the promo right there, promo code SPLASH, of course, for all of your Underdog needs. Go deposit on there, get in the mix. Now, we are in the 5 hole, so we're not going to get anybody too great. We haven't even talked about Kansas City yet, which obviously is going to be a key spot to look at on the slate. Chalky ownership projected for Travis Kelce once again. Do we know, does Taylor Swift want to go to Denver? Because we now have very noteworthy splits for Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift and without Taylor Swift. The fact that he is just shy of 100 receiving yards a game with Taylor Swift in attendance does make me feel like I actually think this is germane information to want to know. And you know me, I don't believe in shit like, oh, last 5 games, blah, blah, blah. That stuff for betting, if you hear people talk about that, they're telling on themselves. For stuff like this, though, where he's just going off because he loves that he has the top pop star in the world in attendance, and she's maybe riding his baloney pony from time to time. If I'm to assume what adults do, then I don't know. I think that might matter a little bit more. Honestly, we now have like 4 or 5 games of a sample size. I don't think it's nothing. Snowing and cold in Denver on Sunday. That sometimes can benefit the pass game, though. The biggest one that always stood out to me was, I think it was Mark Sanchez when he was the Eagles QB that one year, and nobody wanted to play that one game they had where it was like 10 inches of snow on the ground in that Eagles game. I think it was in Philly, and he threw for fucking 300 yards in that game, and I think McCoy got there as well. And one of his pass catchers got there. I forget who it was. I think for the one thing that sometimes people miss in weather games, obviously wind is completely different. If you have a 30 mile per hour wind, that's going to be pretty tough. But for both sides of the ball, defenses and offenses both get affected by snow. Defenders can't track routes as well in snow. So if that's the reason you're not going to play it, if the team total doesn't move, I would still just play it as it is. McCaffrey at this spot, I'm going to take this. McCaffrey at 5, that's no issue. We've now crossed over from professional Spags to silly Spags. Yeah, it takes me about 20 minutes to get loose. Feel like gotta stretch the arms out, wiggle a little, do a little this, and then we're back being silly once again. And AJ Brown went at 3. I like AJ Brown. I think he's a good play. Put him in that hand-built entry, but AJ Brown at 3 feels a little bit tough to me. If I'm getting McCaffrey at 5. Again, I had Mr. No running backs, but a lot of ways you can get there, especially with Darnold, just probably need to check down a little bit more in a lot of spots. All right, Jalen Hurts going to be a little bit less valuable. Mahomes without Kelce. Lamar is probably going to be very chalky in real DFS. But here, does he end up that chalky? Or do I just take Andrews? Or do I take ATM? I should call. I'm going to take Andrews here. I'm going to see if I can force Lamar back to me. I don't know that I can. It is a good matchup, obviously, for Lamar going against Arizona. Never going to begrudge anybody wanting to play some Lamar. But the game theory of this, I'm wondering if we can force Andrews back by not taking Lamar. Somebody still might want Lamar and Zay Flowers, so it's a potential there that they could do that. But these guys have to take certain QBs. Like the AJ Brown guy, I assume, has to take Hurts. The Kelce guy, never mind. The Kelce guy got sniped, so he's going to be pretty pissed about that. All right. We're doing a ballsy play here. It's flash play. We do ballsy plays. All hail silly Spags. What up, Squirt Squad? Shout out to our guy Tyler, one of the leaders of the Squirt Squad, saying to smash that like and subscribe like it's Friday. Yes, please subscribe down below. It is very much appreciated here. Splash play perpetually on the march to 3K subs, and one glorious day we're going to get there. We are currently on pace to get it, I think, by Thanksgiving time-ish, maybe a little bit after that. So we're in the hunt. It's just, look, it's slow, man. This is the indie rock band you're seeing. You're seeing punk rock here on Splash Play every day. I'm not doing fucking waiver wire videos to try to get the views. I just don't give a fuck. I do the content I want to do, and I hope you guys enjoy it and come along for the ride. But man, the showdowns, by the way, I am on I'm on a showdown content heater, if nothing else. I keep getting something right on showdown that I feel like my brain functions very well for the showdown videos. Probably because I don't set up a meeting before them. That could be a part of it. Miami everything. Shocker that Miami everything is going with Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert in an adverse match against New England. Would not be shocked. This is a hot take. What is the spread on this game? I don't even know if I want to say it out loud. Would not be shocked at 9.5-point dog New England pulling off an upset here. I think would be, they're going to do a lot of things to kill the clock. Fucking Lamar goes to, again, this guy ruined it. Tebow taking Patrick Mahomes unstacked, made this guy not get Mahomes. He then takes Lamar. It's a vicious cycle of pain that only hurts me is what happens in these Battle Royale drafts, but we move on anyway. So we have no Andrews. So we kind of want to directly fade Lamar, right? Let's take, who can really blow up this day? Puka's still so good. CeeDee Lamb, not so good, but he's getting a little bit cheaper in this room. Cowboys got to throw more. Let's take CeeDee Lamb. And I think I'm going to try to find a way to hurt the Lamar drafter next is what I'm going to try to do. Because I don't want him to stack up Lamar at this point. I don't care if I'm lighting my $5 entry fee on fire. Drunk Thanksgiving live stream would be fire. I probably will be doing a stochastic stream on Thanksgiving morning, I think. So we'll see how that goes. But I would imagine that's a high likelihood because I think I did it last year, which I don't care. Friday as in yay, it's Friday, or today we do cocaine, or both. I mean, you're going to be more enthusiastic for Friday if you rip a few lines, I guess. So I wouldn't be mad at you. All right. Do we just spite the Lamar drafter? Or you know what? Do we really lean in on the Niners? Because we can go off the QB board pretty heavy and go to Darnold here. But I think I'm just angry at that guy taking Lamar, so I'm going to take Zay Flowers. I don't care if this is a minus EV entry, but that guy should have taken Lamar is how I feel about it. So we get Zay Flowers here. Mark Andrews will add him with CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey. That's what we're going to do. Showdown content contests are frothy with the takes. It's true. I mean, I watch a good amount of Showdown videos just so I know like what people are talking about out there. Cause I do think, as I've mentioned here, like it's an important part, I believe, of anybody's process. If you're playing DFS, is just to know like what the industry is talking about, because that's what's going to drive a lot of ownership. And yeah, I mean, a couple people out there, I know Herzig, I saw Herzig on Twitter, victory lapping like, oh, I mentioned Shakir. Okay. Like I'm doing it on a stream. I wouldn't tweet it and go like, hey, but whatever. I don't want to yuck somebody's yum, I guess. I do a lot of yucking somebody's yum. Is Pete going to do the fantasy Friendsgiving again? I would think so. I'd assume the Shipsgiving. That's been a tradition for years, so I'd presume that'll be on the Wednesday. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know Pete's schedule right now. I'm just, we're doing our own things for the season. We'll see what the future holds after that. But I'm focused on this shit and whatever's paying me, like, which is, I think, the same thing for Pete. So we are simpatico on that front. Shipcast though, crushing. Shipcast getting some nice pick'ems every single week. I enjoy seeing that for our pals over there. All right. What else do we have here? Could take another running back, take another receiver, take another tight end. The world's our oyster. Pacheco's still floating around though, huh? I'm going to take Pacheco here. I think Pacheco's a nice play going against Denver. Just Denver can't do anything right. Again, Denver, the thing that I always highlight, they're really bad against motion. And every time they go against motion teams, they end up suffering a little bit unless that team is the Packers, in which case Jordan Love goes, I don't know what to do, and cries in the pocket. But the Chiefs run it as a high rate than anybody in the league. So I know it didn't work out in the earlier game this year, kind of a defensively minded matchup. The Chiefs don't have to press things into action that much because of how good their defense is. But I think for them, you can really make things work if they really push things to the limit on the Chiefs side. So we have the correlation with CeeDee Lamb for Dak. Dak looked a little more spry that last game. Maybe the Cowboys are realizing they have to kind of play it a little more pedal to the metal moving forward. So let's go to Dak here. I think the obvious play if I had taken Ayuk would have been to go to Sam Darnold. But because we have the Lamb correlation, we'll just go a single stack here. So my final Battle Royale team, Dak Prescott, Christian McCaffrey, Isaiah Pacheco, CeeDee Lamb, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, the Lamar snipe did not help here, but the good news is that we ruined the Lamar guy's team. He has no stacks with it, but he's got himself Bijan, Brees Hall, Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle. Dog shit team for the Lamar drafter. We hate him. He's now on the enemy list. We move forward to the pick'em. The pick'em, the last part of the gauntlet. So let me make sure to pull up probably data as well. Who do we believe in the most this week? I think for me, it is actually going to be Jalen Hurts first and foremost. Let's see what lines we have. He has to get a rushing touchdown, right? Like, there's no way. Like, that's the bet, I think. Like, I think he's going to have a good game overall, but I just find it hard to believe, like, we're not going to get a tush push. We're not going to get a Philly special for a receiving touchdown with Jalen Hurts. I find it hard to believe. But no, I think he runs one in here. We're going to go with Jalen Hurts higher on 0.5 rushing TDs and receiving. But again, the receiving part, who fucking cares? Kelsey. Where's Kelsey's lines at? Let's actually pull up. Let me make sure to get the NFL data here from probably, because I do want to make sure we are getting fair market lines. Yeah, Hurts free square rushing TD feels like, nothing's ever a free square, but I do agree that, like, in that kind of matchup, I do really find it hard to believe that he's not going to get in one rushing touchdown. But of course, that's how Rome falls here on Splash Play. Does AJ allow him to rush for a TD? That's true. AJ is basically cucking Jalen Hurts at every turn, and he has to run all of his decisions by AJ. So that is pretty tough as well. All right, searching here for Kelsey. Kelsey's line is 77.5, 52% chance of the over in betting markets. So we're pretty close. Again, for Underdog, if you're not familiar, you should always be trying to push towards a 5-pick play, because that's going to lower the implied probability you need per leg the most. When you do get to a 5-pick parlay, it puts your implied probability at about 54% and change. So anytime you can get a bet that's 55% probability or higher in the markets, that's a bet you should always take on Underdog. So something to keep in mind there. This is not quite there. Again, 52% probability of the over for Travis Kelce on 77.5. According to our probably data, which is a great tool to use for stuff like this. So this one, I will take the higher on 77.5 receiving yards. Anything else in this game? Because I really think targeting Chiefs explosion still appeals to me. And I also believe, too, for that particular game, people are going to be spooked by the fact that the last time the Chiefs played the Broncos, it didn't go nuts. And in this spot, I just think they still have very much have the potential to go nuts. I'm also rubbing my nose like it's Friday for me. Like, I've been hitting lines, and no, just congested because of a child. Pacheco. Let's look at Pacheco lines. Pacheco over 2.5 receptions. That's not there. 64.5 rushing yards. Ooh, 53% probability on the under. I hate doing this on Splash Play, guys. You know that, but I am going to take the lower on Pacheco rushing yards. I don't think this precludes him from having a good game. Still think he can get into the end zone. Still think he can get there through the receptions as well. He's quietly taken a larger role away in the pass game from McKinnon. McKinnon now just out there basically on 3rd and long kind of plays. So Pacheco, we're going to take I think this is the first lower I've taken throughout, which feels like a betrayal of Splash Play, but we got to do it. You're snorting all the Pacheco lines. It's true. I think Pacheco's a great play, but pure rushing yards, like, is he going to get you? Is he going to get you 100? I don't know for sure that that's a thing. Who else do I really love this week? Who else do I want to take an under on this week? Would be another question. Let's go to Dameon Pierce. No TD prop, which is what I'd really like to get. Pierce, I got to look at Pierce's market lines to see. Houston. Lower on Splash Play. What is this, a sharp stream? No. We just, sometimes for players that we like, we just have to, give them positive motivation, right? Pacheco's going to see this stream. Of course, frequent Splash Play viewer Isaiah Pacheco. He's going to come back. He's going to be like, fucking Spags. He ruined me. He said I was going to go lower. I'm going to run for 200 yards. And then in DFS, he's going to crush. And that's where we really make our bones. All right. Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce has a 64% probability of under 0.5 touchdowns. It looks like we don't have a credible market line right now for his rushing yards, unfortunately. So I can't verify that one. So this is a vibes-based pick. Again, really good matchup. Dameon Pierce, and I presume there are not Singletary lines, right? Yeah, no. Devin Singletary doesn't get shit. Nobody respects No. Devin Lloyd gets the line. Devin Singletary does not. We're going to take the higher on Dameon Pierce, 53.5. I think that's a fair line for him. We do know that he can break big plays. I have no issue with that being the line here. So higher, 53.5 rushing yards. And then I guess we did like A.J. Brown. Let's see what A.J. Brown's props are. Brown here. So he's got a higher on some of these lines, potentially 88.5 receiving yards would be the most appealing. But let's see what Brown can do for me in terms of the market lines. 89.5 is the market line right now with a 51% hit rate. So we're getting a yard of value. How could you resist? There's the higher. We've completed the 5-pick pick'em, which of course I will try to submit, but it won't let me. You're fucking $10. And it'll say, no, you're in Pennsylvania. There we go. I could not detect my location. You know my location, Underdog. You know it better than anybody. Final pickup slip. Jalen Hurts, higher, 0.5 rushing and receiving yards, or TDs rather. If it were yards, you'd be crushing. Travis Kelce, higher, 77.5 receiving yards. Isaiah Pacheco, lower, 64.5 rushing yards. Dameon Pierce, higher, 53.5 rushing yards. AJ Brown, higher, 88.5 receiving yards. That is the pick'em. If you want to tail the pick'em that I can't place, please do that for yourself right now. And I guess that's pretty much it for this stream, right? Any good questions in the chat? Nothing. Q&A period. I guess we'll answer this one. I presume he's doing the ship's giving. I already answered it, but I presume he is. Other things I want to vent about, if you don't have any questions that I can hit on, I don't know. I'm pretty pissed about the showdown stuff, if I'm being honest. Showdowns have been very tilting to me because I'm building really good, unique showdown teams, and I keep knocking at the door, and usually that means you're close to something. But I'm getting a little bit tilted about my showdown process because there are like 4 legitimate times this year where I've been in the hunt for gigantic money, and then something weird happens, and then it goes poorly. So that's been an anathema to me. Hopefully NBA will go better for me after I had a nice night the other night. If you're going at the misses for... Well, like an NYC construction worker with a 7-inch jackhammer, do you do the chivalrous thing and finish with your hand, or do you just keep going asking for a friend? I have no issue just running. Like blue balls aren't really a thing. Like guys invented blue balls to try to pressure women into doing what they want to do, which is not allowed in 2023, gentlemen. So yeah, I mean, I would say just jerk yourself off or just call it a day. Like you don't have to fucking come all the time. Like sometimes you can just not come and have a pretty good day. Spags, I feel for you, man. We're cheering for you on Saturday. Tyler, you're the best. I always appreciate you being here. If that's our only question is about is this one, I've gone on my rant. I don't know. The run good will always be better. Probably integration on Odd Shopper. I don't know if they would integrate on that end. I'm hoping they'll promote probably more, but I haven't asked yet because we don't have our revenue generating products up. So that's been the tough part. Is like I have to wait to get our Stripe set up so we can charge you. And we also had to make sure the products work the way they need to. Because frankly, I was having issues with our most profitable sort on Probably, where it's still not going to give you like the true number one, which I hate. But it is going to give you like a plethora of profitable bets or mathematically profitable bets. So it's working the way that it's best for it right now, but it can get better. So that's been the thing that's been holding us up, as well as just like trying to see if we can raise capital off of pre-revenue stuff, which is sort of like the dance you do with all these things. What weird happened last night? So the weird thing that happened last night was the Bills allowing basically 3 extra possessions for the Bucs at the end of the game, where they had that game won. The Bucs then forced a first down by penalty, and the last one they had Baker wrapped up for a 15-yard sack and a loss. And then the fucking D lineman just grabs his face mask for no reason whatsoever. Like Baker wasn't going to go down with 2 guys who were 300 pounds. You could tell the energy is still here for me. But that was what happened. It was basically because of that, Baker got the bullshit touchdown to Mike Evans that meant mostly nothing unless you are me in a showdown or a person who was betting the under or betting the Bills to win by the spread. Smash Spot was my nickname in college. JK, I never got any. Oh, Tyler. So a late bloomer. That explains why Tyler is such the horn dog now. I feel like that's the case. One of my best friends too. I'm not saying this is the case for Tyler. Didn't lose to Virginia until his mid-20s. And then after that became like really into like dirty talk. I guess it's just sex talk. But the Q&A portion of the Friday video is just sex talk on Splash Play. No, blue bells are very real, or blue balls. I think blue bell ice cream is very real. People love that in certain parts of the country. But I think, blue balls like don't feel great, but it's not like, oh, I'm in such agony. Like you just come another time. I don't know. It's funny, like the viewer went up by like 1 at that moment that I was saying just come another time. And I'm sure they're like, what the fuck fantasy football show is this? Yeah, dumbest face mask ever. It was really tilting, but at least it wasn't in like the Millie Maker. That's the one thing I've going for me was that was in the play action, not the Millie Maker. So 5K would have been nice, but obviously not as nice as like fucking 100K would have been. New catchphrase. All right, guys. I think that's enough for this one. I always appreciate getting to hang out with you guys and getting to bullshit a little bit here. Sorry, this video. Like I have to admit, like I normally like really comb through every individual matchup a little more aggressively. This week, I just don't have like a lot of really strong leans. So it's that combo is a pretty tough one for us. So I do apologize. But of course, we'll be back later today. We'll definitely be doing a lot of NBA prep this afternoon. So go check me out on the NBA deeper dive later today on Stochastic. Come back, of course, Monday to Friday. We'll be doing Splash Play at 11 a.m. And I'm also on Stochastic on Sunday doing the NFL First Look, I believe is that show, 9 a.m. East Coast time. We'll be there with Josh Engelman as well. Get to hang out with my pal Josh a lot these days, which has been nice for me. But we do great shows. I think even if they're not the most informative for NFL, I think they are. But still fun shows. So I would say check it out on Stochastic, my work over there. Have a great weekend, you lovely squirters. Indeed. Appreciate all of you guys being here. And if you want to hit that join button before you go, you will get my data sheet. I promise I swear to God, I'm going to do it first thing tomorrow because my parents are coming to go see Luca as well. So there's going to be a lot of shit going on tomorrow. So I got to make sure to do it probably before noon tomorrow. So check it out here. Hit the join button down below, $4.99 a month. You get all the perks here of being a VIP in the community, custom emojis, all that stuff. Access to me if you want to ask me any game theory shit. And also you will get my data sheet every Saturday. So check that out here. Appreciate all you guys being with me. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. And of course, come back whenever. Check me out later today on the deeper dive. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye.